I want to speak, but I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say. And what I'm going to do today is give a quick overview of the BDS movement, touch upon the topic that Or wanted to discuss. That's very important to understand what the forces are that we are facing, and maybe discuss together and think about creative and innovative ideas and strategies of how to combat this campaign of delegitimization for the state of Israel. I'll start with this. The main news in Israel today announced that another supermarket chain in Slovenia has taken off Israeli products off the shelves. And we're talking about agricultural produce, cosmetics, under pressure from the BDS movement in Europe. This followed similar moves from Germany, from Norway, from Sweden, and in some places of the United States of America. This is what the state of Israel is facing today. Not only the economic issues that every state is facing of economic disparities, not only the incredible unparalleled security situation of the Middle East, where the state of Israel has to combat so many forces from within and without just to safeguard the safety and security of its people, or mentioned Daphna Meir, zichronah livracha. Not a squeak, not a voice, not a hint of condemnation when a mother of 6 is being butchered in front of her kids. And it seems like no one really cares. And without even needing to say it, one can imagine what would happen had it been the other way around. Not that anyone wishes for that to be. But it's important to understand what we're facing. And in addition to that, and I can tell you, as someone who served in a diplomatic capacity and now work with StandWithUs, the war for Israel's PR, the war for Israel's image. This is the war that's taking place each and every day. It takes place in churches, in the general media, on campuses, in city councils, federal government and local government, in supermarket chains, in places where you wouldn't believe. The agenda and the incentive of our foes, of our adversaries for this, are incredible. They know what they're doing, they know what they want to achieve, and this is what we want to touch upon today. Doing this work for StandWithUs is also a great opportunity, because StandWithUs has been in existence for over 14 years, a young organization that has a direct link to everything that's happening on the ground when it comes to campuses and high schools and communities. Fighting BDS has been one of our main activities. But it's important to state, not only fighting BDS, because Israel shall never be defined and should never be defined on the negative. The work that StandWithUs does and has been doing all of these years is Israel education. Inform the public. How many people understand Israel or the Middle East? Even within Israel. How many people understand the issues? Very few. The truth is that the majority of the general public for sure, and I can assure you of the Jewish public as well, has very little understanding or even information as to what Israel is. As to what the issues are, even regardless of the issues. How big is Israel? Who lives in Israel? What is an Israeli? Is an Israeli only an ultra-Orthodox Jew wearing a yarmulke, moving around the house with an M16, protecting the kids in the basement? Yes, for some people. And it's well known to understand and assume, never assume knowledge when you interact with people. Never assume that people know what you're talking about. This is mistake number 1 that's done by our people. Thinking that, hey, you know about the topic just as much as I do, so let's get down to business. And that is a major principle that we should tell ourselves before every and any engagement. Very important to know and understand. So let's touch upon these 80%. Spreading the good news about Israel, spreading the Israel education component is speaking of Israel and speaking of the various aspects of Israel and Israeli life. It's speaking about the history, as Or mentioned in the first meeting that you had on the series, which was the border and the history of the region. It's understanding Israeli society and technology, agriculture, and history on the various fields like education and innovations and startup nations and beyond. Because Israel has so much to tell and so few people to tell that story. On the second layer comes the fight beyond the 80%. Because fighting BDS, the boycott, divest, and sanction Israel, does not start when the boycotters come on campus or come into church or come into your synagogue or come into your local business. It starts long before. When you want to spread the good word about Israel, when you're in a campus where nothing happens, what do? You remain indifferent, or do you enlighten your environment? You seek to enrich your environment with Israel components, to connect Israel to your community, to find the relevance of Israel to the people around you, even before you even touched on boycott, divest, or sanction. But then that moment comes, and you hear those wonderful words, boycott BDS, boycott, divest, and sanction Israel, and it's coming near you. So I'll share with you a few words just to understand the background of the movement, the Boycott Israel movement. So boycott is not an unfamiliar term to Israel. Who remembers one of the major boycotts against Israel that took place a few years ago? What am I talking about? The very famous Arab boycott. When Israel was established, a few years into Israel's existence, the Arab nations decided that it's going to be difficult to beat Israel militarily, not that they wouldn't try. So they commenced an all-inclusive Arab boycotts on Israeli merchandise, on working with Israel, threatening Western companies and others that if they do business with Israel, they will not get contracts in Arab states. And that I'm talking about 30, 40 years back. So that's not an unfamiliar term. That's not an unfamiliar way of combating Israel. But in 2005, this strategy came together, the Boycott, Divest, and Sanction movement, under an umbrella organization, that's the BDS organization, under which there are various on-campus and off-campus organizations working for one goal, which is to boycott the state of Israel and to bring about the end for the Jewish state and the state of Israel as we know it today. That is the BDS movement. We view the BDS movement as being an anti-Semitic movement, quite clearly because of its negation of the rights of the Jews to have a state of their own. No self-determination right for Jews. As Omar Barghouti, who is one of the founders of this movement, said, at the end of the process, there will not be a Jewish state. There should never be a Jewish state. And that's very clear in the agenda of the BDS leaders. How does BDS work? What do they actually do? So the BDS itself is an umbrella organization that feeds best practices to the different organizations who are member of that umbrella group. What's the 1-2 punch approach? The first phase, badmouth Israel, tarnish Israeli public image, connect Israel with anything and everything negative and bad that's happening around you. November 12, there was a demonstration outside of Hunter College. The purpose of the demonstration was to demonstrate against the tuition hike in the CUNY system. The Students for Justice in Palestine, the on-campus group that's affiliated with the BDS movement, on that very day, as part of what was nationally referred to as the 1 million student march to bring down the tuition costs, marched onto the streets and said, what did they say, Rina? Long live the Intifada and Zionists out of CUNY. Now you tell me what that has to do with the tuition hike, aside from combining the terms Jewish and money. These are the agendas that are taking and owning, in owning also the term of the social justice, in thinking that social justice is contradictory to the state of Israel. If you're for social justice, then you must be against the state of Israel. So connect the state of Israel with every wrongdoing that's happening around us. Black lives matter because Israel hates blacks. Tuition hike because it's because of the Zionists that you pay so much money for school. When you understand that it's all Israel's fault, it's very easy to move to the second phase, which is punish Israel for what it's doing. Punish Israel for disenfranchising Palestinians. Punish Israel for apartheid and ethnic cleansing. Punish Israel for being Israel. And you will see it wherever BDS takes place, whether a boycott resolution is promoted on a student governing body on campus, or whether they're approaching a local labor union, or coming to the church. And I can assure you they will not reach out to the Israeli consulate, nor to the shaliach at the local JCC to bring the Israeli perspective. This is where we need you. This is where the state of Israel needs you. Needs you to stand up and be ambassadors for the state of Israel. Needs you to educate yourselves, because you will gain access more than official representatives or more than people who work in the advocacy or education world. You, as members of your own organic community, you have authenticity, which gives you the ability to penetrate the arena and bring about the necessary knowledge. And on some of the venues we coped with BDS Stand With Us, we had to have a member of that union come forth and fight it. When the Park Slope Co-op in Brooklyn debated the substantive issue of whether to have an Israeli hummus on the shelf, all part of the BDS campaign. We are a co-op. We're all about social justice and living together. Therefore, we cannot endorse the occupation. Hummus off the shelves. And only through a group that was working within the Park Slope Co-op that supported Israel were they able to bring about, by the way, almost on the Daily Show, say yes to hummus, no to Hamas. And what does hummus have to do with it? They brought the agenda to the assembly where they said, with all due respect to the hummus, that's got nothing to do with the Middle Eastern politics. That's not what we do. So on the short term, the idea is to tarnish Israel and bring about the punishment through creating coalitions. So when something comes up, there is a very big LGBTQ festival called the Conference of Change, taking place, I believe it's in the West Coast, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the organizations participating in that is called the Wider Bridge, which is an LGBTQ pro-Israel organization. Yes, they do exist. Israel exists in that realm as well. And on the program of the festival was, God forbids, a reception to celebrate Israeli achievements in the fields of LGBTQ. They received notice from the management of the conference that they're not going to be able to hold their reception for security reasons. Of course, the reason was to make sure that Israeli Voice, as the organizer of that cancellation, said Israel is contradictory to the issue, so we can't allow Israel to present. Only through social media were we able to influence the organizers, who were immediately hashtagged, and they said, well, security reasons, that of course can be resolved immediately. We'll get the necessary security and we'll be able to hold the reception. But social media made the difference. Now, when you think about these alliances or boycott Israel, what are we afraid of? Rina, how many BDS, how many campuses adopted the BDS resolution? Approximately. Would you say thousands? 30. Between 30 and 50 campuses adopted the BDS resolution. How many of them were implemented on the ground? No, implemented. Actually made the university withdraw its investments from Israel. 0. So what are you afraid of? Shahar, this is an empty threat. There is nothing to fear. If none of this actually takes place, so we're talking about a mirage. It's nothing but a ghost, a specter. So what are we afraid of? Who can help me? What am I afraid of? Why am I troubled with it? Yes?
It's bad PR if you're on campuses where you have young people who will soon be old enough to be in politics.
And that's the key. Poison. The BDS discussion poisons the environment, poisons the minds and souls of people surrounding the issue. So think about a student who's got nothing to do with Israel. Let's talk about the 80%. And the 80% have no idea about Israel, but all they hear is this: Israel contradictory social justice, Israel tuition hike, Israel crime, ethnic cleansing, apartheid. What would they think, even without knowing anything about Israel, that Israel is negative? And generations on generations of young people who are graduating our campuses and high schools keep on being exposed to that negative message. So when the time comes and they need to sign a bill or create an alliance with the state of Israel, in their heart of hearts, in their minds, Israel shall forever be associated with the negative, whether the BDS resolution was successful or it was not successful. And on the official manuals of the BDS movement, and they have those manuals, and these manuals exist, they indicate specifically any discussion of BDS is a victory, whether we are successful or not. Any discussion of BDS is a victory. No longer isolated radicals. So SJP, the campus group, had an issue of reaching new people. So you had the core people who hated Israel, but how do you do outreach to new people? BDS gives you a higher level of activism, gives you the feel-good approach. Everything we do is to promote BDS because BDS is an educational method to tell people the truth about Israel. It uses liberal and progressive language. It masquerades itself, because not everyone who supports BDS is necessarily vehemently anti-Israel. Yes, the core is, the leadership are, the main activists know what they want to achieve. They want to achieve the eradication of Israel as a Jewish state. They want to make sure that there is no Israel in the long term. In the short term, they want to make sure to punish Israel and strangle it economically. But the people on the outskirts who are convinced by that language may only come on board because they feel they stand up for something good. They stand up for a social justice cause. And that attracts many of the people who take that sticker. And was it last week, Rina, that they went to CVS and put a sticker of on the Sabra hummus? Again, the hummus has been a major arena, a very tasty one, but a major arena. And they put a sticker on the hummus in the store. If you buy this, you partake in the occupation. And again, what did we do? We tweeted it to CVS. And CVS National tweeted us back and said, give us the location, we'll take care of it. And they did. Again, the power of social media and the power of getting involved. We stress the coalition building. There has to be an element of coalition building. When you fight a fight, you don't want to do it alone. One of our main issues, and I want to tell you this, for high school and for campus, when you do a pro-Israel event, enough with those standalone Israel events. It's always a pro-Israel speaker or a pro-Israel component that's going to be there, and usually the choir, if at all, will come to the event, and everybody will be happy, and the numbers will continue to diminish. When will we have the time to stop and think, how can we take that component and make it bigger? How can we take that Israeli aspect and make it relevant to more people than just us? People who have never interacted with Israel. So if I want to speak about my experience, for instance, if I take a personal example, because it's all personal, it all has to do with what you have to offer, with what you like, with what makes you you. So it's a diplomat who served in Africa for a few years and worked with the United Nations on making a difference on the ground. I can go and speak about Israel making a difference on the ground, or I can go and speak about funnel aid money to the developing world. Does it work? So the title of my talk has nothing to do with Israel, but the contents of my talk will have everything to do with Israel. So that's the idea of being able to advocate for Israel without making it frontal. To get faculty and student group support to hold an event, and not only under the banner of a flag of Israel. Just be smart about the way you present Israel. The perception that BDS presents is very clear. It's us versus them. Yes, if you have any ideas about who's who, that's us. And the idea is, show a very black and white image of what's happening in the Middle East. I am nothing but bad. My intentions are negative. We, the BDS supporters, stand on the good side. If you ask some of the leaders of the BDS movement, assuming you have a BDS assembly coming next to you, do you support a two-state solution? Either they won't answer you, or they'll say no. There is no place for a Jewish state in the Middle East. BDS is the exact opposite to what we try to preach for. It's building walls when we need to build bridges. It's trying to cut connections between academic institutions in Israel and the world. It's trying to keep people away from each other. BDS, by the way, itself, and that's another thing you want to ask yourself, how popular is it in the Palestinian territories? I can assure you, not very much. Norman Finkelstein, who is not well known for being a lover of Israel and a great Rebbe, said BDS is a minute movement that has no impact in the territories because it's contradictory to the interests of Palestinians. Similar statements were made by unnamed officials of the Palestinian Authority. When SodaStream had a factory in the West Bank, employing hundreds of Palestinians who enjoyed high wages and health insurance, the BDS forced it back into the Negev, making forcing SodaStream to fire so many Palestinians. That's the reality of BDS. Now, do you think those who support BDS and are on the outskirts, who have no idea what they're really standing for, have any notion of that? I doubt it. What's the BDS strategy? Turn public opinion against Israel, damage Israel, and the long term, eliminate Israel as a Jewish state. Remember, there is no room for Israel. These statements are documented. They're not subversive. You can find them online from Omar Barghouti to other main BDS activists. BDS is not about peace. Supporting BDS is not supporting peace. It's not supporting reconciliation. It's supporting hatred and animosity. It's the bigotry, the right of return, which doesn't exist in international law, to bring back millions of Palestinians to their homes in Israel in order to eradicate Israel as a Jewish state. That is pronounced, by the way, not assumed, not deduced, but pronounced as the ultimate BDS goal. Eliminate Israel and the right of the Jews for self-determination. Where can you find BDS? Anywhere and everywhere they can get to. From small businesses, I mentioned the co-ops, to corporations, to financial institutions, to labor unions, to churches, to social media, everywhere. They will go wherever they can to badmouth Israel. Needless to say, they outnumber us. So all the help that Israel can get, it needs. Why do we call BDS anti-Semitic? Because it answers the Sharansky triple D definition of demonization of Israel. You saw the Nazi sign. The double standard of Israel. The only country that's being judged in that way is Israel. No other country is being judged so harshly. And when you ask BDS activists what their answer to this, they have none. And delegitimization, when you deny Jews the right for self-determination, which is a right given naturally to all peoples on earth, that's delegitimizing the state of Israel. The BDS strategy and our strategy are exactly the same. What we need to do is develop our narrative, understand what it is that we're saying, to mobilize our supporters and to create coalitions, and then move to positions of leadership within our community to make a difference. If we are indifferent to Israel in our lives, we will have succumbed to our enemies. If we choose to do nothing, we will lose. We have no other choice but to engage. And engagement means positive and negative. Fight the bad, enhance the good. And by God, there is so much good to tell. Don't you ever forget this. Proactive goal. Set an agenda on campus. Stop divestment from being introduced. I went to speak at Texas A&M a few weeks ago. Great campus. Actually, one of the only campuses in the US. Divestment means take away investment from Israel. Investment is the exact opposite, where students at Texas A&M voted twice consecutively on student governing body to invest in Israel because of its social justice record. And then there is a third phase. As we said before, how many divestment resolutions have been implemented? None. How many investment resolutions implemented? None. The solution is not only to spread the good word, but to build connections to Israel and try to manifest that love to Israel in actual deeds. So the students came out with a plan to bring Texas A&M together in a study abroad program with a leading Israeli campus. And indeed, a few weeks later, a $6 million program was announced because the students encouraged the administration, it came from within, to create that bridge with Israel. There has to be an actual manifestation in order to counter the tactics of the BDS movement to bring about an economic strangulation of the state of Israel. Lawfare is another arena that the BDS uses and that we're able to counter. A lot of legal measures are being taken, both against people who support Israel on campus, where they're being harassed by the administration through legal means, and at the same time used against Israel in international courts, whether it's the International Court in The Hague or elsewhere. It could be smaller tribunals. I want to share with you the one of StandWithUs's newest innovations, the endbds.com, that includes also a phone number. What's important to know when you fight BDS? To know that you're not alone. When you want to support Israel, you're not alone. You have others near you who want to do exactly the same. The worst thing that could be done is to isolate you and to think that no one will stand by you. So when something bad happens, or when you want to do something good, when you want to brainstorm with like-minded friends about interesting ideas to bring a high-end fashion designer to your campus, to bring a cool technological innovation to show Israel, to bring a wonderful speaker who can rile things up and make it interesting for you on campus that you think your professor would love, or you have the anti-Israel groups bring about a boycott resolution or draft resolution to the student governing body. NBDS.com will help you. We will find the people to assist you. We will connect you with like-minded people around you who can assist you in that battle. And that's a very important element of the work. Some of the other materials that we try to give in this respect is know your rights when you're on campus. You don't have to take lying down everything that's being given to you. When you hold a rally or you do an event and you want to know where you stand, we will help you understand it. Explaining the BDS movement, and these materials are in the back, and I urge you to take some and share with your friends. Understand what the BDS is. People think or can be misguided to believe that the BDS is a positive movement. And most importantly, to understand in how many ways Israel shines and makes a difference in our lives. I can share with you from my term at the consulate in the media department, I happen to hear that there is an Israeli inventor who comes to town, and he has a company that is producing an insulin pill rather than the injection. And he wasn't even doing hasbara or advocacy. He just happened to come to New York on business. But as a consul for media affairs who heard from a friend that such an individual is coming, I immediately reached out to him and said, are you willing to do something for Israel? He said, what do you want? I said, well, you know, the insulin pill sounds so cool. How about if I put you on some diabetes magazines and radio shows and blogs, and you give an interview, and you just share that story from your perspective? It's good for the business, and it's great for Israel. And he said yes. When on one occasion we had a visiting minister from Israel, the Minister of Science and Technology at the time, who came to New York and said, I'm here and I'm happy to speak to the media. What do you want to speak about? Anything. Settlements, anything. Because that's what comes to mind, right? You think Israel, media, settlements. But wait, aren't you the Minister of Science and Technology? Yes, I am. So, how about speaking about science and technology? Oh, that's an innovative thought. Let's do that. And the result was an article in Scientific American magazine about Israel's space endeavors. It's all here. It's all here. That's all you have to do to take Israel to the next level. And most importantly, to understand that doing this for Israel is not only a great and moral thing to do, standing up for the rights of the Jews to have a state of their own, and not only is it fun and entertaining, it's also very much beneficial to you, because there is so much goodness that Israel has that can enrich your lives. And that's what people miss today in the industry of lies, as it's being called, against Israel, in trying to let you know that Israel is nothing worse. There is nothing worse than Israel. I can tell you, just to end this, a quick story, because I hate stories. You can hear it in my voice. That one day, in a discussion I had in one of the airports crossing into, I had a discussion with a customs official. They were having a bet, and when I came to present my passport, they said, we lost the bet. And I said, what bet did you lose? They said, well, we didn't know where you were from when you were filling the forms. Let's just say we didn't guess. I said, well, what did you think? Where was I from? So they said, I don't know, Brazil, Spain, maybe Italy. So I said, well, waving my Israeli passport, why not Israel? So what did they say? You seem to smile too much. Think about that for a minute. You smile too much for an Israeli. What's the perception that people have of Israel that we may all know, but the world might miss? Thank you very much. I'd love to open for Q&A if you have, and it's very, I'd appreciate Q&A, because I think that's the key of what we can do tonight. Toda rabba. Thank you. Okay, so you have two questions there. One is engagement with the other side. We have people who support BDS. How do you even start a conversation? So the first question I want to ask you is, do you start a conversation with them? A lot of people think to themselves, we'll go to the other side, we'll convince them, we'll talk to them, maybe then we'll do the Hava Nagila. Maybe. That might happen, and I'm not against it, but just bear in mind that chances for success are not high. Because we are prisoners of our own minds. If you come and convince me 1,000 times that Israel is a horrible entity, I'm not buying. Most chances are that hardcore people on the other side won't buy. So the main goal, in my opinion, and that would be my practical advice to you, is aim at the 80% who have no idea. This is where you can actually achieve success, because they're ready to listen to you. They're not there yet in the anti-Israel movement. They'd love to hear what you have to say, if it's relevant for them, if they're part of the store, if it's a poli-sci class, if it's relevant. Don't force it on people. Make them want it. Make it relevant to them. Let's talk about engagement with these people. And assuming that some of these people don't really know, and let's talk about them we talk about the hardcore BDSers. Let's say these are on the fringe. They believe they're doing something for social justice. The first argument that I always say contradictory to BDS is, in the Middle East of today, and going back to the incidents described by Or before, when a 15-year-old wields a knife at a woman, what does that say to you about the society and the culture from which that individual comes? And 15 years is less years than the existence of the Oslo Accords, first initiated in 1993 by Israel with the Palestinians. So there is an element here of educating for peace and coexistence. Peace will never exist if it doesn't go directly between the Palestinians and Israelis, between Ramallah and Jerusalem, not between the hummus at Wesleyan and the hummus at Park Slope Co-op. So the first element is we need to work on building bridges, not walls, and boycott and the negativity and the negative movements that send a negative message to Israel and Israelis take away any prospect of Israelis believing that any good will come out of these relationships with the Palestinians. The second question is, I would ask them, do you believe in a two-state solution? If they say yes, do you believe in the right of the Jews to have a Jewish state in the Middle East? If they say yes, then please show them the statements made by the BDS leaders and say, how can you be part of a movement that doesn't? If you support peace, BDS doesn't. The most important question is, how does that affect lives of Palestinians? Not Israelis, Palestinians. And I can assure you, as many Palestinians speak out on the issue very openly. One of them is Bassem, who is a Palestinian human rights activist who lives in Jericho, not in Los Angeles, nor does he live in Chicago. Someone who used to be the first research person for B'Tselem, the human rights leftist organization in Israel. And Bassem comes up and says he came on a tour, he's coming again soon, and he has a habit, which is a very dangerous habit in the Middle East. He tends to speak the truth. So when he rises up and says, BDS, I live in Jericho, not you, you don't know what the effect is of BDS on my community, and what alternative do you offer? Assuming BDS is successful and Israeli businesses shut down, where are Palestinians who currently work there are going to work? Do you have an alternative for Palestinians? Can you help them, or only use it on the negative way? So what are the goals of BDS? And where do you fit in with these goals? And if you really want to make a difference through interaction and engagement, through education, because we know we lost a generation. We don't have to lose the next ones. We don't. And if we continue focusing on the negativity, we will for sure lose the next generation, just like we lost the 15-year-old who wielded a knife at a woman. That's what I would say. Yep. Even at Wesleyan, at the risk of torrential tomatoes. Yes. Well, Stand With Us is an Israel education organization. It's not a political, and it's not, we are very careful not to play the political game. We're neither AIPAC nor J Street, because our aim is Israel education, and we want to inform. We think that a strong, on any issue, by the way, it doesn't have to be Israel, on any issue, a proper public debate needs to be an informed one so that people understand what they're talking about. Having said that, our knowledge and resources, our materials have been very much accessible to many people around the country and around the world on these issues. Some of these individuals might be members of legislative branches of various governments who want to know more and understand more, because there is so much deception out there when it comes to Israel. People say in the general media as well, use a term often enough and people will take it for granted. Israel's continuous ethnic cleansing in the West Bank and the apartheid regime. And if you say it often enough, people will take it for granted. Yes, of course, the ethnic cleansing, as if it's nothing. As if, yes, naturally there is ethnic cleansing. So we're there to shed light onto these issues of Israel. Now, not to say that Israel is immune of criticism, not to say that Israel is perfect, far from it, but it's strong enough to cope with its own malaise within its own society. We don't need external measures of boycott in order to take Israel in a different direction. Anyone who plays part in this game in Israel has a stake in it and will pay a price for it. So if you're more to the left in Israel or more to the right in Israel, you will still bear the consequences of any decision, which is something we strongly believe in at Stand With Us, including the democratic value of the Israeli people's choice. Having said that, we don't take a direct active role. We just avail of these materials just like we avail them to you and to your friends and to your community. Yes. So Stand With Us works with fellows in high school and fellows on campus to try and get these, organic voices are the strongest. So for us to be present anywhere, and for any entity for that matter, it could be the consulate or Stand With Us or any other organization, it needs to come from within. Otherwise, it seems artificial and it's much more problematic to penetrate the arena. If you don't have someone on the inside who is inviting you and prepping the arena and understands the arena and has the connections, this is how BDS works. You have people who support BDS and they study, let's say, for 6 to 8 to 85 years, and they're on campus and they do the work and they know the campus and they know the people. Now after a year, they're ready to start launching programs on campus because they know the campus and they know how it works and they know who to speak to. So you need to have the person on the inside who has the passion in order to take that move. Do we wait? No. Do we reach out? All the time. But in almost I want to say 100% of these cases, the major impact will be achieved only if we have someone on the inside, whether it's community or whether it's the students or whether it's parents or alumnus, someone on the inside in the system somewhere orbiting who can help us go in, who can tell us who to speak to, who will be the mediator, the matchmaker. I can also tell you that one of StandWithUs's greatest achievements, because of the fact, again, we're not only an anti-BDS organization. We're an Israel education organization. But by the nature of our work, we see all of these guys. We encounter them so often that we have mastered knowing them internally and externally. We know how they work. We can anticipate their draft resolutions because they've been tested elsewhere. We know how to counter these draft resolutions. We know how to work through the university's guidelines in order to bring those resolutions down. And we know how to guide the students how to build coalitions. Now comes the most important part, which is to have the students want that kind of help. Now, one of the things we're very proud of is an anti-BDS summit that StandWithUs is holding. This year it's going to be April 9 to 12, I believe, for the second time. Last year we had it, in which we share, it's in LA at our headquarters, and we share best practices on BDS. What it includes, how they work with experts, with students, with people from the field who actually experience that work in order to teach and share, because that knowledge is crucial to be able to cope with the challenges ahead. Again, just gaining the advantage of our experience. Yes, more. I want to just add one word, and maybe you can help me. If I were it's from a recent program we did when we went to one of the high schools that was very much pro-Israel. And we made a presentation at that high school. And in the course of that presentation, the idea was to prepare yourself for college. By the way, not only in a negative way. You know, we go to our kids and we give them the whole ideas about BDS, but it's not all negative when it comes to Israel on campus. There is so much positive and positivity and positive programs that you can do. So be careful not to tie Israel only to gloom and doom. It's depressing, and we're all human beings. But on that session, we reached out to seniors, and we believe that you want to start educating yourself about Israel earlier rather than later. And whatever you didn't get at home, we may be able to assist you get at school. And in my opening statement to the students, which was I only asked for about 10 minutes, 3 of which I told them, don't tell them where I work, just tell them Shahar Azani, an Israeli, is coming to speak. And the way I opened the session was, thank you very much for having me. I'm here to tell you why it's important to support the boycott resolution against Israel. As an Israeli, I'm seeing the crimes of the occupation and the Israel Defense Forces, who force Palestinians to suffer every day. How long did it take you to get to campus? 40 minutes? There, 3.5 hours under the searing sun of the Middle East, just because of the checkpoints of the Israeli Defense Forces. As a Jew, as an Israeli, it's important that we stand up against these crimes, that we help innocent Palestinians live their lives, that we help Israel restore itself to where it should be as a Jewish state based on tikkun olam, making the world a better place. That's the language. That's how they do it. They incorporate the language of social justice. Words like justice and dignity and peace and equality and self-determination have been owned by the other side. They will speak to you in the most mellifluous of voices. They will tell you the sweetest progressive language you want to hear, hiding whatever nefarious policies and ideas they have in mind. And they will attract you. And if you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't know enough, you will be attracted to it. It sounds appealing. I can tell you, what do you think the reaction was with these seniors who listened to that introductory talk? How did they react? And I'm talking about modern Orthodox, ultra-Zionist school. Quiet, shock, amazement. In the Q&A part, barely a hand raised, trembling voices. Just imagine, this is the kind of, this kind of activity is what you're going to be exposed once you leave the greenhouse. Once you're out of your school, your shul, your community. Know how to cope with it. This is why we launched a boot camp that's targeting high schools and gives a one-day session of just opening your minds to what's going to happen out there and how to cope with it in an innovative way. It's what we're trying to achieve. So I'm just putting it out there so that you know what words you can own. Don't be afraid to use the word justice. Don't be afraid to use the same jargon used by the other side. The fact that they use it all the time does not mean they own it. I would recommend, if you're interested in doing something at Wesleyan, to run a program there about Mashav. Have you heard of Mashav? M-A-S-H-A-V. This is my dues for the late Golda Meir. Mashav is Israel Center for International Cooperation and one of the best kept secret of the state of Israel today. When I was appointed to Nairobi, Kenya, I knew that I will represent Israel at an embassy abroad, and I knew that the main issue when it comes to Israel is the Palestinians. Because the twinning issue, anything Israel has to have a Palestinian issue or an Arab issue, and the media will attack me, and I was very, very much ready. And only when I arrived in Kenya, working with 6 countries, working with the UN, did I understand that people there, or many people there, had no idea about what's happening with the Palestinians, but knew very much, a lot, about Israel's activities in the developing world, about Golda Meir's policy and strategy when she was foreign minister at the end of the 50s, who said it's our obligation to reach out to the newly decolonized nations of Africa as one young nation to the other based on our Jewish tradition. And she established Mashav, Israel Center for International Cooperation, that's still active today, that trains thousands of people in Israel, that sends experts abroad, that launches projects and special programs with the United Nations agencies and elsewhere to make this world a better place. This is a strategy of a politician and a leader that still lives today. It's not a 4-year term, nor is it an 8-year term, but a 60-year vision that's still taking place each and every day. A modern manifestation of Zionism in the work that's being done on the international stage, and a manifestation of a universal good. Because today we're used to looking at the international systems and think to ourselves, how depressing. The UN does nothing, the administration does nothing, governments can't do anything, diplomats are a failure, politicians are a disaster, let's munch. And when you see this and you are inspired by a difference made by this woman in this country, this small state, you understand that you can make a difference. And people have no idea about that side of Israel. People do not know that history of Israel. And I'm not saying, like some people would tell me, you're just trying to avoid the issue, or the way they phrase it, you're doing the falafel dance. No. It's just showing the multifaceted nature of Israel, exposing Israel's vision, and do it in a relevant manner. So where can you celebrate it? I can tell you that we ran a program on one of the campuses at the University of California in the course of the month of February in honor of Black History Month to celebrate Israel and Africa connection from a personal perspective, where we told that story. It did not have to come based on what was happening in the Middle East today, but it was a vision and a strategy, just to tell the tale and make people understand that Israel is not about black and white. There is so much gray. There is so much gray. And once people understand that the issue is complex and not a black and white as it's being depicted by our friends at the BDS movement, they will have taken another step in the right direction. Anything else? That's it. I killed it. You want to go back home to a hot chocolate and enjoy on a cool night. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Or. Thank you, JBS. Appreciate it. Good night. Thank you.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to Jem, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.